Hey, everybody, this is Larry Little, and you're listening and watching Crossing the Line, a podcast where we talk with leaders about the moments in their life when they cross that line from leading with their head to leading with their hearts, and from leading with their hearts to leading with their head. I can't believe it, but we're at the end of season 3. And what a season it's been. We've had a year of incredible guests, and we wanted to share with you some of the biggest takeaways from those guests. So for this episode, we've gone back and taken out just some of the things that they've said that were really important. We've compiled those together, and we're going to go back and listen and learn from these very special guests throughout the year. We're going to learn from them now. So this episode is about the biggest takeaways from each of the prior episodes of this year. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I think you're going to really gain some insight and leadership knowledge. Let's jump in.
Focusing on having a growth mindset is the thing you need to have. I feel like the idea that you're always going to be learning, that you find a way to help yourself do that, to be curious, to continue to ask questions, to not get fixed in your positions. I feel like that's a really important thing. You mentioned this earlier, and I would echo this, is that you got to realize that we're always in a state of becoming. And for me, the question is, are we being intentional with that truth? And so are you conscious of that? Are you thinking about that? A pastor friend of mine and just good friend, he would say, who are you becoming when you're doing what you're doing? Who are you becoming while you're doing what you're doing? And I love the consciousness that question requires, right? As you go through life. And because sometimes we don't pay attention, right? And we don't pay attention to the trajectory we're on. And 1 to 2 degree shift in trajectory leads you someplace totally different. And I just would encourage people to be responsible with that and be intentional with that and stay conscious of those things. I think about it makes me think of there's a Matthew McConaughey like speech he gives, like when he gets like a Emmy at some point in his life. I don't know when this was, but what stands out for me about what he talked about, he was talking about somebody asking who his hero is. And his response is something around, it's himself in 10 years. And so
Right.
he's trying to figure out how to live into being his hero in 10 years. And
Yeah.
I think that's part of this growth mindset, being intentional, thinking about growth. In our company, we try to decode a couple things. One is that leadership is not about management. It's not code word for management. So don't think about that way. Those are different things. And growing isn't about advancing. So you gotta kind of let's talk about what these things are independent, because you can grow wherever you are in whatever you're doing. And as a leader, right? That's about influence, and we want. For us, we're trying to attract people, and I think this is just good advice, right? You want people that want to grow themselves personally, that they have just a heart of service and an outward look that they want to grow people around them, regardless of position. We know that grows business, right? And so, in general, and so we want that sort of relationship. So I just invite people to that just works for life. How do you grow yourself? How do you help others around you grow? That's a big part.
We have to come to the place where we realize if you don't know who you are, others won't.
Just say it one more time for
If
me.
you don't know who you are, others won't.
Beautiful.
And something I had to learn through all of that was I had to understand my value. And so many times, even because there were times when people undervalued me because I walked away from my career. But I had to learn how to remind myself of my value. Even at home or in the church, because if I didn't, I would lose my identity and of who God really created me to be, and I couldn't see myself as a real leader until I understood that. We only see our value with a job, a profession, a title, and when that changes, that's depression, anxiety. All of these things, all of these emotions kick in because, you really weren't sure who you were You identified who you were with your surroundings and your environment. And I had to come to the knowledge of I am wonderfully and fearfully made.
That's right.
Whether I'm at home taking care of my children, whether I was in the ministry with my husband, or I had an engineering title on me. And I think that it was the beginning of me understanding real leadership. I knew that it's important for us to know those who labor among you. And so I knew I had to find what is the niche of each individual on this team. What are their strong points? What are their weak points? Because apparently some of them are functioning in their weaker points or weaker areas, and that's why we're behind on our job getting done. We're behind on the work that's required with the contract. So I started getting to know people, just conversation.
Right.
Finding out their likes and dislikes, trying to figure out why they didn't get along.
Right.
And in the middle of that, you wouldn't believe this, but in the middle of that is when I met you.
Really?
Yes. That's when I met you. I said, this is not working the way it is, and we've got to come together as a team. And I heard about your first book.
Yeah, Make a Difference.
Make a Difference. And so I read it. I met you first at, it was an event, The Indicator.
Yeah, yes, I
Years
remember.
ago,
Yeah.
I met you and I read your book on Make a Difference. And then I began to understand the personalities of each one of our team members.
Oh, wow.
And I realized that I had a monkey, I had a lead. I mean, I had some lions. I had a turtle. I had the whole. I had the camel.
Yeah.
And then we were working for a lion.
Oh, wow.
So our client, the lead on the project, was a lion, which made it very difficult because I had some monkeys,
Right.
I had some camels, I had some turtles, and they don't do well with lions. So
That's right, yeah.
So that caused me to really look inside who I was as a leader. And that's where my growth really started to happen and change.
The first thing that I would say is to, especially as a young aspiring leader, or not, or you don't have to be young to be an aspiring leader, but as an aspiring leader is first and foremost, check your ego and go do your research about the ego and how that impacts your ability to lead, to learn, to grow. I'd say number two, the best skill that you could ever learn as a leader is learning how to ask really good questions. And again, I'll just leave it at that and move on. I also like to tell leaders, especially as you're a newer leader, because you have an opportunity to sort of really develop and shape this, is to take care of your personal brand. And your personal brand, of course, is what other people think about you. And then the last thing that I will really spend just a moment on is that, because it relates back to my childhood, is to discover really, and I don't mean just like, okay, yeah, I know what I'm striving. I mean, really search and discover what your strengths are. Very quickly, Larry, back to when I was in the 9th grade and writing these book reports, what I learned later in life, this was after the Air Force, when I got into human relations education, I realized above all, my strength was my creativity. And it was how I ended up writing these book reports. But it was also, I realized it wasn't, and I don't think it's so much this way anymore, but if I said you were creative, especially to a man, to a leader, you'll be like, yeah, I mean, they don't really want to hear that. They hear you're a good decision maker, you're good at all these. Well, the creativity is a massive skill and tool that you have, especially if you lack a little bit more on the left side, that.
Right.
And so I'm just saying that was, it's a cliche, but that truly was and is my superpower, my ability to creatively, let's say, problem solve, creatively make this, all of these things, don't strictly come from my creative mind, but it's at the forefront for me.
I'd say 3 things.
Okay.
Number 1, rethink what it means to lead in an age where people have 10 million more words a day coming at them than they ever have. Through text, social media, TV, email, meetings, down the line. You've got 10 million more words a day. So we all know supply and demand. If you weren't looking for an additional 1 million words in your life every day, and you've got an additional 10 million words in your life, what's the relative value of words anymore?
That is so good.
So how you act was always the ball game. We've all seen the people who can say the right things. You see them behind closed doors and aren't doing it. You don't trust that person as a leader.
Right.
But what you do matters so much more than it ever has, because words are abundant. Words are everywhere now. Number two, rethinking assumptions. Like, for example, you show up to, not you, but just in general, leaders out there. I'm talking to all of you out there who are listening. You're showing up to motivate people, right? And you've got your message, you've got your tactics, you've got your strategy. You know the question we're not asking? Are y'all willing to be motivated anymore? Like, when is the last time you were ever sustainably and deeply motivated and encouraged and bold and excited about what was ahead? In a time when people are tired, or they're hurting, or they're disappointed, does your audience have the emotional wherewithal right now to be motivated? Or do you need to talk to them first and let them understand that you understand that they're not coming here from, quote unquote, the normal life you thought you had had, and now I want you to take me to the next level? A lot of people feel like they're having to fight and scratch and claw just to have what they considered normal life. Yeah. Now, I think perspective matters here. Should we all run to the Ukraine and tell them how hard we have it?
All right.
I think gratitude can lessen some of that pain and hurt people are feeling. But at the same time, they do have, everyone has legitimate struggles that they are working through, including the people who are looking so great on LinkedIn. I know them, you know them. They have their problems too.
Right.
It's just that no one wants to hear about it, yet they're hurting as well. So I would not just assume everyone is in a posture to be motivated or encouraged. You've got to get them back to even remembering what that felt like, because they've been busting it for 2 years just to tread water. And then the final thing I would say, you know, in a time when people are increasingly have been isolated, all the community metrics, you know better than I do, have declined.
Yeah.
What does it mean to connect people to something larger than themselves? That's not even a concept that is on the radar screen for people who are growing up on a phone.
Wow,
what does that mean? How do you not connect them to a concept larger than themselves? That's not what I'm saying. At that point, you just are picking your vision or your cause. I'm saying, how do you talk to people about what it means to be connected to anything at all?
Yeah.
Beyond your immediate needs and wants and preferences. I don't think you can assume that people are just ready and able to go be connected. I think we all want to be, even if you don't know you want to be.
Right.
But
need to be.
But I think you've got to meet people where they are, and you've got to present the contrast. Like, you've lived life in a significant level of isolation that you thought was normal and healthy and just how it is. It's not. There's another way to live. There's another way to participate. There's another way to engage. So, you know, I think the common denominator there is, don't assume people are in a posture to be led. Meet them where they are, show them that they understand, and then don't think in terms of leading, as you will well know, think in terms of serving them, and that's where you have an opportunity to connect.
And I come to realize that you can have drive, but you also need to make sure you're caring for the people, right?
Yeah.
And so that journey had started, you know, probably 8 years before. And I was like, now I have an opportunity to really walk that in my personal life at another level that I'd never even thought about doing, right? And we can't just be task oriented here. We have to. So it was actually a very natural transition, because it was something that actually, in case where I'd started practicing it more in my work life, and then brought that back into my personal life. And then those personal experiences now have shaped me going forward as a leader into the future. So it's really been about moving myself to spend most of my time above the line, and knowing that I can always go below the line really easily, right? And when I need to dive down on the details, I can do that.
Right.
But I need to spend more time above the line. And so all of those experiences in the personal life, which forced me to spend more time above the line, then now have driven into my work life, which is spending more time with my employees. I started doing more management by walking around time, getting to know people on the shop floor, getting to walk to all of our locations across the United States, getting to know those folks. What's their journeys? What's going on in their life? What makes them a part of this? And getting really excited about I get more energy now, Larry, of when I get to spend time just with the employees and our wonderful workforce all around the U.S. And again, the journey they're on, that's where I now get my energy from a work perspective. It's not about I just accomplished this new scramjet, or I just accomplished this new hypersonic system. That's all great, and that's what I used to get excited about.
Wow.
Now I'm far more excited about watching the team mature and grow, and particularly watching our leaders mature and grow. Number one, you have to be intentional. You have to practice it, right? If it's and using whatever method is good for you, whether that's a sticky note on your mirror in the morning, or whether that's a note in your book, or a reminder, whatever works for you.
That's so good.
Make it intentional. Decide today, what intentional things am I going to do to be above the line and caring and being a part of my employees or my team, whatever you're involved with, life, right? Family, right? All of those things. What am I going to do there? What am I going to intentionally do there? I'll think about that. I pray about it, and I pray in the mornings, and I use that as a mean to kind of ground me. What do I need to be focused on today? That helps me personally to do that.
That's so good.
And then just practicing it and
Practice is so good. Yeah.
recognizing that you can't ever have perfection. You'll never get there, because every situation is different. And then just being willing to slow down and take life in as it happens. I have a quote on my wall. It's from my wife. It's from Tanya, and it's right there on her wall. And she said it to me one day. She says, "Just because you can go fast doesn't mean you should."
Oh, that's good. That is good.
And so, that's a going below to above the line in that little quote right there. Just because you can go fast, the below piece, doesn't mean you should, the above piece.
Don't be afraid to stretch yourself, to get out of your comfort zone. That's important. Surround yourself with those that I mentioned that are brilliant, that are doing some of the things that you'd like to do. Ask questions. Find good mentors, people that are willing to take you under their wings. I've never come across anyone that wasn't willing to answer questions and help, especially living in the South. I mean, people are always willing to take time and spend time with you if you just ask. Don't be afraid to ask.
I think that there is this pressure to kind of know the answers when you're young, right? It's like, I should know what I want to do, that kind of keeps you in a place sometimes of paralysis. And for me, and I don't know if this is true for everyone, but I do think it requires a good amount of experimentation. And I think that people, I used to be a career counselor at a point in my career with college age students. And I just found them kind of like, I need to know what I'm going to do with the rest of my life at 22. And it's like, this is just the beginning of you experimenting and exploring, and putting that much pressure on any one job to kind of have that, all the components of who you are, I think is kind of a little bit of a misnomer. It's a little bit of a false, I think, thing for people to pursue or explore. And I also think there's ways in which our jobs don't satisfy all parts of who we are often. And there's real value in us accepting that and realizing there are ways that jobs might satisfy some parts of me, but I'm going to need to pursue things outside of my work that appeal to the other parts of who I am, where I can kind of feel like I'm bringing my whole person to my life.
Always improve. You know, you get to a point like, I made it. No, continue to learn, continue to work on your craft, continue to read books, continue to study, continue to watch podcasts or listen to podcasts, continue to go to seminars. You want to walk into that room and be comfortable and grasp being uncomfortable, you have to be still learning. You just still learn with different environments. So really focus on that. The second one, this one's going to come off really harsh. Me and you talked about it the first time. No one cares what you're going through. And not to say I can't, like my boss Steve, love Steve to death. It's not like Steve doesn't care what I'm going through.
Right.
But when it comes to that point of it where we got to execute, if I'm having issues at home or, you know, I have a flat tire, etc., no one cares about that when you walk into that conference room and you have to perform and make that presentation or whatever that is, or turn in that piece of work or scope by the end of the week. No one cares that you went through that, what you went through that week. So you have to grasp that, because a lot of people, I hear excuses all the time. Well, I'm going through this. I get it. I understand. I hate that for you, and let's talk about that. You know, however, if you can't do it, you need to let me know you can't do it.
That's right.
Right? Versus give me something that, you know, it's not the product we need to be successful. And so I learned that early. No one cares. And I probably learned that in college, from college football, right?
Yeah.
If anything, you get hurt, get out, next man up, right?
That's right.
So coming in and just saying, all right, I got to be able to, you know, compartmentalize, you know, the job, my life, my family, etc. in certain situations. And then there are times where, hey, Steve, can I come talk to you? Or, hey, or you got to be open, have your door open policy. Say, I'm going through this. All right, now let's sit down and talk about it.
Don't let what your perceived expectations that others have of you pigeonhole you. So just be true to yourself. Don't worry about what someone else is thinking about you, because more often than not, they're not. We're all just humans trying to get through things, but people aren't necessarily having malicious thoughts about you or saying, wow, he's really screwing up or he's doing a great job. Like, people are just trying to get by. They got their own load to carry. So stop worrying about what they're thinking about and start worrying about what you're thinking about. If you're not enjoying what you're doing, go do something else. Life's way too short to be miserable, especially with something like work. That's the majority of our time is spent in work. So if you're not enjoying it, and if it's feeling like a chore every day, then you shouldn't be doing it anymore. And I guess the second part of that is just go find your passion. And if you find something that you're passionate about, money will naturally follow, because that passion will attract people. They'll see how good you are at it. They'll see how much you enjoy it. They'll enjoy giving you the opportunity. And most people will say, well, of course you need to be paid. You need to be paid a fair wage for your labors and for your efforts, and you won't have a problem. It won't be such a big deal. Just say, yeah, well, here's what I would need to perform that. And they'll say yes.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Wow, to listen to that insight, to those leadership truths back from the whole year of season 3. It was meaningful for me. I hope it was for you. I want to stop just a minute and tell you how much I appreciate you allowing us to do this. We couldn't do this unless you listen, and you being a part of our family. The Crossing the Line family is really, really important. I also want to say a special thanks to our team here who works so hard to provide this for you. Robin Brzezinski is an amazing producer. She works with us and really does all the work behind the scene to make this happen. And then the team at Otis with Lauren and Will, what an incredible job they do to get this out to you so you can have this content. It continues to be actually a learning experience for me. I really don't know what I'm doing, but I'm loving the opportunity to learn and to grow. And I hope that you are too. I hope you have a wonderful Christmas. I'll be celebrating the birth of Jesus. I hope that you celebrate in a way that's meaningful for you. And I hope that you have a great start to 2023. Now, I've got to tell you, in 2023, season 4, can you believe it? Season 4? Well, we have brainstormed and we're working hard, and we've got some new and exciting things to share with you as we jump into that new year. So make sure you stay tuned and make sure you join us in season 4 of Crossing the Line. Know that we appreciate you for making a difference.